Hey there, I'm Christopher Schoenwald, and welcome to Life as a show intently focused on helping people find their professional pathway by exploring and unearthing the details of jobs from around the world. Environmental sustainability has become this buzzy term across industries, within boardrooms and around dinner tables, and thankfully so. I mean, it goes without saying that we're truly at a critical juncture from a planetary perspective. We're well past the point of conjecture on the matter. What is required is flat-out radical change and rethinking of past practices that are not serving the needs of the planet. Does this mean things could get a bit uncomfortable in shifting towards new paradigms of action? Sure. I mean, this is often the case when it comes to instituting new modes of operation. Although, as you'll soon find out, this doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Certain industries are in the midst of radical positive changes that are in fact effectively serving the needs of the environment, as well as that of companies and workers. And perhaps, most importantly, these case studies illustrate how focused missions, strong leadership, and the collaboration can forge sustainably minded pathways which are in line with what we as humanity require for our own future existence. On the show today is someone who leads on sustainability by way of her reach, action, and execution within the world of film and television production. Her laser focus on green initiatives and knack for instituting change on scale makes her not only a worthy individual to derive inspiration from, but also someone many of us can be learning from too. All right, welcome to the show. So, Clara George is a Vancouver-based Emmy Award-winning television producer and the founder of Clarity Films. However, in her own words, Clara would consider herself a climate action producer with a singular professional mission, which is as follows: producing a green production without compromise. Now, after a successful 25 years as a television line producer, which included highlights, including numerous awards and nominations from the likes of the Emmys, Producers Guild of America Awards, Critics' Choice Awards, and many others for her works on productions, including Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, The Andromeda Strain, and Flight 93, amongst many others, Clara decided to concentrate on producing the sustainable production movement. Since devoting herself to the cause, Clara has morphed into a formidable powerhouse of positive change and action. A sampling of her many efforts and achievements include work with Vancouver City to pass motion to eliminate diesel generators for film production, to facilitating the development of the Clean Energy Committee at Real Green, to organizing productions using only 100% recycled paper, saving 85,000 trees per year since 2018. And further, her productions have achieved, and get this, the reduction of fuel consumption by 20% per season, the reduction of paper consumption by 75%, and the reduction of waste by 20%. And not to be outdone, Clara both chairs and serves on numerous motion film industry and environmentally minded committees. All of this has amounted to even more deserved award and recognition, such as the Real Green Ambassador title by Creative BC, as well as the honor of being named a Sustainable Champion at the Vancouver International Film Festival Sustainable Production Forum. Of course, recognition of one's work is pleasing, but make no mistake, that is not what drives Clara. She's an individual intently focused on so much more, namely the singular notion that the time is now to disrupt traditional production practices, move green agendas forward, and to produce true climate action. So with all that stated, Clara, it's an absolute honor to welcome you to the program. Hi there.
Hi, thanks so much.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to this talk. I mean, your resume of accomplishment and all that you've done, pretty much speaks for itself. So I'm really eager to hear what you have to say today on all of these things. So yeah, thanks for taking some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can jump right into things here. I have the first segment lined up. It's something called Coloring Wikipedia. And as my listeners would know, this is a segment where I just typically read off a definition of the guest profession as defined by Wikipedia. And we just kind of use it as a launching pad to explore the work that you do. Sometimes the definition's on and sometimes it's off. But I do have to tell you right off the top here, Wikipedia is going to let us down, or is letting us down, unfortunately. I could not find a definition based on your work. I mean, it's a burgeoning field, so it kind of makes sense. And I did go here with a sustainability advisor. Now, I do understand that, much of your work has been within as a television producer, but with the focus of today's talk being on sustainability, I went with that definition. I did find something from the job site Indeed, however, that I think we can work with. So I was thinking maybe I could just read that off for you. And as you're listening, maybe just within the context of all you've done, you can just kind of consider it. And I'll ask you a few follow-up questions after that. Does it sound good?
Yeah, great.
All right, perfect. Well, here we go. Sustainability consultant. A sustainability consultant is a qualified professional with expert knowledge of sustainable practices. So such consultants work with clients in various sectors and governments. They advise on issues related to sustainability, such as waste management, recycling, and the effects of climate change. Sustainability consultants also use awareness and expertise in environmental policy, sustainability techniques, and their knowledge of health and safety to offer solutions to complex challenges. All right, there it is. First take, what do you think of that?
Well, I don't think it's too far off. My first knee-jerk reaction is why are we talking about garbage? Because I really concentrate on fuel reduction and fossil fuel reduction.
Yeah.
But then I started kind of thinking about it as waste, and what we are doing is pointing out the waste.
Yeah.
You don't need to be doing this. I do think that the one crucial part is that it kind of implies that you're an expert on sustainability, and I was an expert on film production.
Right.
And then learned about sustainability as I went along. And I think that that's super helpful, because when I'm speaking to productions or I'm speaking to other producers or crew members, they know I understand their workflow. I know I understand their industry. I know how this works.
Yeah.
As opposed to coming in from, a physics-based engineering point of view of fuel reduction, which is, or waste or whatever, which is great, but that's not gonna work when the director decides he wants to shoot on top of a mountain with a helicopter. So, you need to understand, any sustainability consultant or advisor, which, by the way, I think is the job of the century, really. I think you have to start with expertise of what you're trying to green.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going in trying to green aerospace. I have no idea how that would work.
Yeah.
I definitely stayed in my lane, and I think that's why I've had so much kind of, I don't want to say success, because we've gone so far, but we have so far to go.
Yeah.
But there's so much starting, and I think that the kind of the ongoing movement, the conversation is in real time.
Yeah.
Like it's changing every minute, every time I talk to something new, and being able to immediately look at something and go, oh, will that work for film or not? Or can we try it?
Yeah.
Or this will work for some films or not the others, because every film is totally different as well.
Right.
Like every project you're dealing, if you're working on a period film, you don't really have to worry about what your picture cars are, because they're horses.
Right.
If you're working in outer space, you don't really have to, you've got, everything is totally different. So it's really, what can you apply to do what you know best, or be as sustainable as possible for that hour, for that minute, for that project.
Yeah, I really like that point. I mean, I think that's something, as you said, I mean, this position, this role of an advisor or consultant relating to sustainability is the job, is the job moving forward, I think. And like, you're seeing a lot of interest in it, even just chatter online. When I was researching for this, there's a lot of people that are interested in it. And I think there's a lot of burgeoning programs that are kind of developing, out of universities or other programs elsewhere. But the point that you raise of actually being within the industry, I think, is a key one that can't be lost. It can't be forgotten. It kind of just sort of fits in. I had another guest on that somebody you're familiar with, Zena Harris, and we were speaking to this point a little bit as well. I mean, if you're chatting with these television producers, people that obviously have a bunch of concerns, when they're working on something. The idea is, as a consultant, that you're raising to them, if you want them to resonate, you have to be speaking their language. In essence, you have to be understanding their challenges and what they're faced with, as you were kind of just alluding to. And I think that's a really important point. You can't be just coming, out of these programs with all of these sort of, sometimes maybe pie in the sky sort of notions of like, I'm going to change this, this, this. Well, until you fully understand that industry, the ins and outs of it, not just on a surface level analysis, but like a kind of a deep, deep awareness, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a slog, right? So I think that's a really worthy point to bring up really early on. I really appreciate that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really, really important is that, especially in, well, in any industry, but especially in this industry, the crews have been doing this a long time. We know how to make
Yeah.
content.
Right.
People know their jobs.
Yeah.
Even as a producer, when I was producing television, I think one of my strengths was that I listened to people. I
Mm.
listened to all the departments. I wasn't going to tell the art director or the production designer how to design something, or the DP how to light something. Okay, I might have done that occasionally, but it's more in the form of a question. Like,
Yeah.
is there another way to do this, or how can we do this? And
Mm-hmm.
by listening to, these people have spent their careers perfecting what they're
Yeah.
doing at every stage. There's hundreds of people who work to get a film made,
Yeah.
or an episode made. I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to tell them what I would like done. This
Mm-hmm.
is the end result that we would like.
Right. Right.
We want you to save fuel. We want you to
Yeah. Now
avoid
present back to me,
landfill.
what are your
We want,
solutions to the
yeah, how
problem?
are
How
you
are we
going
going to
to,
accomplish this? Or what are the options? Yeah.
because
Mm.
everybody has every region. Like, I've worked all over well, not all over the world, but I've been lucky enough to work in Europe. I've worked in the UK. I've worked in the US, all across Canada. And you would think that we're doing the same thing. We're not.
Mm.
There's regional nuances.
Yeah.
There's nuances between television and feature films and commercials. There's nuances between which union you're working with. There's nuances even within,
And just
are you
regulations
Disney? Are
probably
you working
too.
for CBC? Are you working for, is it a Canadian film? Is it a
Yeah.
US film? There are all these different nuances to how things are
Yeah.
done, but the principle is the same. And the principle is, you get a script page and you figure out how to take the director's vision and put it on camera with the
Yeah.
amount of money that you've been given. That's basically
Mm.
content,
Right.
right? So now what we're trying to do is put a sustainability lens on that, saying, okay, yeah, you're going to be doing this, but is there a way to do it that's more sustainable, that's
Mm-hmm.
reducing fuel, that's using less fuel, that's using less paper, that's using less? Can you start adding this to what your 25 or to 2,500 things you have to think about in each scene?
Yeah.
Can we start adding this? And you can only do that if the tools work,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't. I always use this analogy of, having a toddler and saying, oh, eat healthy, and then putting chocolate on the table. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to have the apple,
Yeah.
otherwise you can't do the message. So
Of
a
course.
lot of this work right now, because it's just starting. Like, this is
Mhm.
actually so exciting because it's right at the beginning of this
Sure is.
movement.
Yeah.
Like, this has been going on for maybe 10 years, but really took off in the last 5, 4,
Mm-hmm.
3. Um, is it's constantly changing. So the more, what's available today wasn't available yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's definitely one of the most exciting parts, and that was one of the things that, again, referencing that talk I had with Zena Harris, and then also too, just researching for this, there is, you're right, there's tons of change, and technology's driving a lot of this forward. And the other thing too, I'd be curious about here. I'm just going to throw this question in while we're at it. I'd be curious. Again, you just said within the last 3 to 5 years, there's been radical change taking place. Have you noticed I don't know, I guess like the role of an advisor, sustainability advisor, consultant shifting, changing, maybe in terms of responsibility, or maybe even having a little bit more clout? People are responding in different manners.
Well, it's kind of, there's two things. There isn't really this role.
Mm,
This role
yeah,
doesn't really exist on
yeah,
most shows,
yeah.
right? Like, people don't
Still
budget
evolving.
for it. It's not a union. It's not happening. However, there's a mandate from all of the corporations, whether they're, Netflix, Disney, CBC, BBC, those corporations have SDG mandates. So they have to track their sustainability. They have to create goals as government funded organizations, some of them, or reporting as part of their shareholder base. They have to do it.
Yeah.
But that's so far removed from a film set that the concept is bridging that. So for years and years and years, studios have had sustainability directors, and they're working insanely difficult, like an insane hard job behind the scenes trying to get everything set up for the production. Yeah. But the production barely knows that, because when you're talking to the generator operator, he doesn't even know what studio he's working for half the time, let alone who the sustainability director is of HBO. Like it doesn't go that way.
Major disconnect there. Yeah.
So to try and bridge all of these elements, I love it. Like to me, it's producing, right? Like I stopped producing content, I'm producing this. It's equally as challenging. It's the same skill set, because you're really, as a producer, you're a project manager, and this is the project. So you're still trying to figure it out. It's a lot harder to do it when it's not your own show and you're not the boss. It's a lot easier when you're the boss and everyone has to listen to you all the time. But that's one of the things about producing is you have the final say. It's not a democratic system.
Right.
But now what's interesting is the people are starting, like the questions are coming from the crew now. How can I do this? How can I make this better? How can I, that's really cool, because they're the ones we need to do it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's I guess with every industry, it's a top down thing. The mothership has to decide they're going to do this. And then they have to provide the resources to do it, whether it's the personnel or the knowledge or whatever it is. And then, but you really want the operator, you want the people on the ground are the ones who make that.
You want this, right? You want it kind of coming together, kind of meeting in the middle somewhere, right? Top down, maybe this way, top down, and
it's got to meet in the middle, and it's also a film set is like a mini world, right? It's a mini city. Like we have clothing, and we have food, and we have water, and we have lighting, and we have power, and we have cars, and we have sometimes horses or whatever.
Right.
And, so it affects everything. So you can look at the fashion industry that's got its own movement on how to green the fashion industry.
Yeah.
And then you talk to the costume designer on a show and you go, okay, look over here, see what they're doing. Can we do anything? What can we do?
Yeah.
Or, makeup, whatever it is.
Right,
like there's each department, each person can find a road to doing their job more sustainably.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, I think, to consider it all right now, because it's obviously it's an issue that affects us all. And I think the more awareness and just awareness in the general public as it's been growing, people are starting to take initiative, as you say, and especially some of the younger generations as well coming through. They're not only taking action, but they're demanding it also from others, not only from themselves, but from others. Like if you're not doing things the right way, there's a good chance you're going to get called out on it by a coworker or somebody else, maybe a manager or a boss of some sort, like it's reaching that point, which is exciting too, because that's what we need. I mean, obviously we know that we need radical change and we need it fast, if anything, like we need it yesterday, so.
Well, that's why the film industry is such a great opportunity, because, we are nomadic. We move from show to show to show.
Yeah.
So if you can teach one crew, odds of that crew working together again completely are nil. So they'll take some of that to new. Exactly. It's like they told two friends and they told two friends, and then you're creating market demand. So then the vendors are changing what they're offering because of the crew's input. And then you're also able to try things really quickly. Like you can go from, like on the show that you mentioned, the last show I produced, I looked at the data from season 3 and how much fuel did we use?
Yeah.
And we used 300,000 liters of fuel.
Wow.
So in season 4, we knocked it down to 250. And then in season 5, we knocked it down to 200,000.
Wow.
because we could look at our mistakes because
Yeah.
we were looking at real data. By episode 3, season 4, season 5, compare the chart. How did we do?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and there is a formula to filmmaking. So if you can start injecting cost savings or sustainable fuel savings or sustainability savings, whatever you want to call it, if you can start creating those practices,
Yeah.
you have a lot of data,
Yeah. To work with,
like,
right?
yeah, if you replace a vehicle that's, driving crew around in 1 week, they'll drive 1,000 kilometers.
Wow.
You have a
Yeah.
lot of data.
Yeah.
You have a lot of instant kind of gratification. Oh, this is working, or no, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right away.
You can
And then
set
you can,
strategy essentially, right? I mean, you can
yeah,
look at that and chart a new course. You can start to
exactly.
come up and identify those problem areas. Yeah, definitely. It's empowerment, right? Is what it is.
Yeah.
That data is what it represents.
And it's also a huge opportunity because, um, even in Vancouver alone, and this is data back from 2019, we were using like, what was it? 6 million liters of fuel in generators.
Wow. That's significant. Jeez.
So it's not like it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
one person. I mean, I understand, and I think it's, everything you do individually is so important,
Hmm.
but I'm very impatient. So I realized I could affect more people in the industry than just telling my kids what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So I could scale it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually a question I do have lined up here for you. And maybe we could just kind of skip on over into this next segment, a Q&A discovery. We can just kind of continue this back and forth, but I do have some questions here. We're starting to touch on them.
Sure.
And yeah, I really want to dive into each of them if we can. And off the top, maybe we can rewind a little bit here just to get a better idea of you and your work. I read off a lot, off the top in terms of accomplishment and what you've been doing in terms of the television production side of things. And obviously, with what we've just been speaking about, the sustainability movement and advising, consulting on that side. And I'd be curious to hear a little bit about what sort of pushed you in that direction towards sustainability. I mean, most people, ultra successful, they've got a good thing going. They're just going to keep working that formula. That's probably what most people would do. But obviously, you chose a different path for yourself. And I'm curious, like, what led you down that way, essentially.
Well, I had a great convergence of I call it my COVID/midlife crisis, all kind of happened at
Okay.
once.
All right.
So I finished, I was working on sustainability within my own shows.
Yeah.
And I started by reducing meat consumption in like 2016 on all my shows. And then the paper thing where we went to recycled paper and it was constantly like, it's a personal interest of mine.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see how much I could influence a
Hmm.
production. And the last couple of years in 2018 and 2019, I also started kind of getting involved in the province of BC, getting involved in the city, working with Women for Climate, doing all that kind of in my spare
Okay.
time because I
Yeah.
was freelance. I worked, 6 or 7 months a year. So in my off time, I, joined a climate activist group or
Okay.
went and got a what do you call it? It's not a degree, a diploma, or I did a couple of courses at
Yeah.
Arizona State University in sustainability, or I was, I want my professional
Yeah.
development was on always about that.
Okay.
And then the industry shut down
Yeah.
with COVID.
Yeah.
So I started reevaluating, going, do I want to? And my
Hmm.
show had ended too. The show I'd been working on for 3 years or 2 years had ended.
Okay.
I had some interviews and I'm like, these people are crazy. We can't shoot like this in COVID. What are they thinking about? Like this was summer of 2020 and they want to, oh yeah, we're going to shoot in neighborhoods. And I'm like, no, we're not. There's
Yeah.
no
Not
way anyone's
happening.
going to let us in. And they hadn't figured out how to shoot yet. So we hadn't gone back to work yet. So it was all of these theoretical
Okay.
conversations, can you move to Australia for 2 years? And I'm like, no, there's like a month quarantine and then a month on the way back or
Yeah.
two. Like I can't.
Yeah.
So I started going through all of this and I thought, let me just try. Let me
Mm.
see if I can create a life doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say it was such an interesting time in terms of that side of things. Now, like again, referencing data, like a lot of people, had similar sort of experiences with whatever profession they were involved with. It's a time of reflection, and I think a time for some individuals, and it sounds like for yourself, to chart new courses forward. Yeah, it's really quite fascinating when you can kind of look back on things in that sense and see how that moment in time really did shift a lot of people's
It
lives.
was also really inspiring
Yeah,
because, like, I was lucky enough not to have any personal tragedy associated with COVID.
yeah,
Very, very grateful. Um, so when I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, we just shifted an entire world's behavior,
right, right.
right? And the sustainability or the climate action movement needs COVID's PR people because this is actually as urgent, if not more urgent.
Yeah.
More people globally are dying from pollution than from anything or from floods
Right.
or hurricanes or extreme. So, I mean, climate change really makes COVID look like like a,
Yeah.
a tiny
A little
little,
blip.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and yet we're not reacting that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of very inspiring. I thought, wow, an entire industry started
Yeah.
wearing masks and getting
Yeah.
their noses swabbed every 2 days. And it's like,
Yeah.
and everybody's changed the way they are doing things. Now is the perfect time to kind of piggyback on that change
Yeah.
and say, hey, while you're doing things differently anyway, do this, add
Yeah.
this to it, add whatever.
Right. Right.
Um, but part of the problem is that a lot of people have, rightly so, uh, PTSD with COVID. So I kind of talk about it more like how we shifted from film to digital,
Yeah. Okay.
which like our entire industry gave up its namesake
Mm-hmm.
for a computer chip on the back of a camera. And I think the whole transition from start to like broadcast was 5 years, 6 years. Like
Wow.
it wasn't a 20-year plan,
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
So
Once there's a mission behind some of this stuff, things can accelerate and it can go quickly, right? Things can happen. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I like that parallel. And we can only hope that that's kind of the track that we're on right now, which kind of leads me into my next question here, actually, Clara, which is that, again, in researching for this talk, numerous interviews with you, there's been numerous articles as well. And the thing that struck me as I was going through a lot of this is you just seem one, very mission driven, but then also really, I don't know if this is on or off, but quite cerebral and strategic in your approach. And I think you've referenced this already in this conversation is that the changes that you want to make extend out beyond just your own family or just that the work that you're involved with in that moment. You want to do things on scale. And that kind of leads me into, again, some of the research that I found. Like you're working with the city of Vancouver, which is the third largest production center, film and television production center in North America. You're working
mhm.
with city planners. You're working with, people there that are in charge of a lot of the, regulations and such. And I just found that to be really, well, one, inspiring, and then two, really quite compelling as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Am I onto something here with that line of thought or what?
Yeah, I mean, I a lot of it was I lucked out.
Yeah.
I lucked out. I made the connections and all that, but I also have made a concerted effort that I'm going to do as much as I can, as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Like that's not my personality. My personality is, I'm sit in the background, I organize everything, it happens, I do projects and then I take months off and I do nothing and just enjoy my life. And I thought, no, I'm not, I can't approach this way because I'm not comfortable enough in this way. So
Mm-hmm.
like the Vancouver municipal government connection came from an ad I saw online there was a Women for Climate mentorship program that was being run in Vancouver. And I thought, okay. So I started reading about it and I thought, well, I'm going to try and push this agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did not feel comfortable writing a 3,000 word essay and submitting it. And my kids laughed at me because I actually wrote it in the application instead of writing it somewhere else and editing it and copying and pasting it. So it
Yeah.
ended up being submitted before I was done. So that was, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And and I was and then I was considered for a pitch. So I think there were 70 applicants, and then there were 25 pitches heard, and then there were 12 people or 15 people who were
Mm.
put in it. And I was very clear on what I wanted.
Yeah.
I was very clear because I'd gone to meetings with the film commission at Real Green, which is our arm here, and they were going, yeah, but the city legislation, they won't let us double park, so we end up using two generators. Like literally, that's how it started. And then when I started talking to my mentor was Counselor Adrienne Carr, and when I started explaining it to her, she said, "Well, let's just eliminate generators." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go for that." And the plan is to do it by 2030, and it's
Yeah.
on track.
Mhm.
Since that conversation,
Yeah.
30% of production shooting in Vancouver have eliminated at least one generator,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
significant.
an insane amount of carbon.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And
It's significant.
yeah, well, it's yeah, I think we figured that was represent about 650 generators. So it's about a ton of carbon per day.
Wow.
So, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that you just have to start. And then because it's clean, like people get attached to this. And
Hmm.
I'm like, wait a sec. It doesn't smell. It's not going to hurt your lungs. Like it's quiet. Why not?
Yeah. Exactly.
But so that was just luck. And I had no idea. Like we met. I did the pitch in February. The first meeting was at the end of March. We wrote the motion on our laps. It was, unanimously passed by council by July. I didn't know that wasn't how it worked
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's how film industry works, right? Like, so I'm applying film industry speed
Yeah.
to real life.
Yeah.
And we move really quickly and we don't
Yeah.
take an
That
answer
does
and we
not
go
sound like it
through
would be
all
the
the
norm.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, it's inspirational as well in that sense of like just, there's a moment, there's a spark there. And it's just like you said, it's taking action on something. And, with a bit of fortuitous sort of luck involved. And I guess, like you said, some connections there and everything else. And just that drive, I suppose, right? That mission,
Well,
probably
I think it was
passion that
also,
shines through that can drive these things forward, move that agenda forward.
yeah, it's very specific.
Mm,
So going back to what
yeah.
it was a very specific request
Yeah.
that once I could explain it, people could understand it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a whole, we need to change the world.
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
do you start?
Right.
Like a lot of, in my work with the Directors Guild of Canada, I'm the climate action chair. We've developed a website that's specifically for the job you are doing. So
Okay.
you can go onto that website and you go, I'm in locations.
Yeah.
This is what I need to do. I'm a director. This is what I should look at. I'm an editor. This is what I should look at. Because
Yeah.
it's not the same.
Yeah.
Like it really isn't the same. The goal is the same,
Hmm.
but the pathway is completely different. So I think
Hmm.
it's really important that we're giving people pathways
Yeah.
because otherwise it's, not only because it's nicer and it takes away a lot of the work, it's faster.
Yeah. It's way more efficient, right? Flat
Yeah.
out, way more efficient. I think it's one thing to have like, the theories, theoretical sort of like, looks at things and we need to change this. But you're right. In terms of actually getting it into action, you need these sort of like strategic plans in place that, maybe aren't always cookie cutter in essence, but at least they're formulated in such a way that you can take them and derive action from them right away. Like
Yeah.
that, such a key point. I love that.
It's all about solution orientation, like
Yeah.
being solution oriented. And, that was something that I was also lucky enough to read this fantastic book by Sephora Berman
Okay.
called These Crazy Times, that she's like one of our leading activists in right
Mm,
now in climate action. But she's also very specific. She knows exactly what the end result is and she knows how to get there. And it's literally follow the money.
yeah.
Like you want it better generators. You don't talk to the generator operator about better generators. You talk to the vendors about better
Mhm.
generators because they're the one developing the technology. You
Right.
want better usage. You talk to the Genny ops, not the vendors, because the vendors don't care how you use them once you rent them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very strategically setting up your conversations or your requests so that they're doable.
Yeah.
Like they have to be doable.
You know where to
Otherwise,
begin. You know what to do
yeah,
essentially, and you know you're not going to be wasting time. Having the wrong conversations with the wrong people. Yeah, I love that.
yeah,
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's really
yeah.
helpful. I've got another question, kind of in this vein as well. Here, I was wondering. I mean, within a lot of industries, right? I mean, companies are going to keep sort of like trade secrets internal for obvious reasons, right? Competitive advantage, so on and so forth. But with this issue that we're speaking about right now, a matter, the environment, that climate crisis, it's affecting us all. I was curious whether or not, like, when you're, say, producing uh, a show, for example, and you're finding this great solution, is that something that within the industry people will have conversations about, like, oh yeah, we did this and it produced these results? Or is that still kind of stuck in this sort of like, well, this is our sort of competitive advantage? Because oftentimes these things will be reducing costs, which then of course does ultimately help that company or that production. So there is still that competitive element in there, but then you have this, this big issue that we're all trying to work on. Really curious about that dynamic there, and how that's
Yeah,
being.
no, there is no, this is a non-competitive space.
Great.
So what's
Okay.
really amazing is that the whole world actually has rallied and created
That's so encouraging.
organizations. And for example, Real Green started in BC, and
Yeah.
on the advisory board members sit every vendor, every studio, every union. We're all working together on this. And then Real Green is working with we're working with other provinces, and then there's a national Real Green.
Okay.
And for example, the one of the ways we're eliminating generators is by creating these permanent power drops in Vancouver. And that technology took us in Vancouver like 2 years to develop, working with industry, working with city engineers, working with the film commissioner Jeff Tioli was like on it every day. The all those people you mentioned in the city, the engineer, everybody working together. The second that those plans were stamped, they
Yeah.
went online for free. Toronto
Awesome.
downloaded them, London downloaded them, New
Oh, that's
York's
great.
looking at them, LA's looking at them, and the same thing is happening in the US through the Green Production Guide, which is a collaboration between the Producers Guild of America and the SPA, which is the Sustainable Producer Alliance. That Sustainable Producers Alliance includes Netflix, Disney, Fox, HBO,
There
Universal,
you go.
Amazon, Apple, you name it, CBS.
Yeah.
I've missed like 10 of them.
Yeah.
They meet 4 or 5 times a week, depending on what committee you're on, to share what's going on. They collaborate on, we need renewable diesel accessible for us. So we're going to work together on a letter that we all agree on that
Yeah.
we can send out to all the productions. And the same thing's happening in the UK through BAFTA's sustainability arms called Albert.
Okay.
So, and then now hopefully we'll have something completely global in the next year or so through the UNFCCC. But nobody's hiding the
That's
stuff they're
great.
doing.
Yeah.
They're really calling, you can call anybody and go, where did you get an electric car?
Yeah.
How did I
That's
get
great.
this battery?
Yeah.
Did you try the hydrogen thing? Did it work? How did that work? There's obviously there's competition between the vendors,
Yeah.
um, but there's not competition in. They're actually elevating each other by going, yeah, we're working on new technology to replace generators. Oh, so are we. We might not share it
Yeah.
with you, but
Yeah.
like the fact that that both of them are working on it,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you can now go and go, I need to do this.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of there's also studios that are like Vancouver Film Studios is a B corporation. You can read everything they're doing online. They're sharing it around the world.
Mm.
So I don't think this is nobody's keeping this a secret. Like
Yeah.
anyone who's into this is like all hands on deck. Let's get it out there. Let's scale it up. And it doesn't matter
That's.
where you learn it, because again, we're nomadic. You don't know if who you're going to be working for next month.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I was quite frankly, hoping for that sort of answer from you right there, kind of put that cynicism to bed there. And it's nice because, I mean, there's so much doom and gloom about this climate crisis, and rightfully so, rightfully so. I'm not going to minimize that point, but it is also uplifting to hear this. I mean, this is a major, major industry, obviously, that is not going away. It's been here forever. And to see that kind of radical change taking place is, yeah, it's an encouraging sign.
Well, I mean, we're having this conversation because we dropped film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like if our industry can't influence culture, then we're making the wrong things.
Right.
And not just in how we're making them, but what we're saying. Like we're lagging in what we're talking about with it.
Yeah.
How we're addressing climate action on camera. But, subtle things make a difference. Like you can have, iconic things that went viral because of a television show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fashion, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know what would have happened to Prius if Cameron Diaz hadn't jumped in one.
Right. It's a lever of influence is what it is. Right. So, I mean, it offers so much possibility of driving things forward in the right way. So I do want to shift over right now really quickly, Clara, into a new segment, though. We are moving at a pretty good clip through this conversation. But this segment in the middle here is a water cooler story segment. And it's just typically where I'll ask guests to indulge listeners with the story relating to the profession. And I'd love to hear what you've got for us today.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some hopeful ones, but I think I've said them before. So I think I'll actually go with one that it was my, oh my God moment, which was, I was working on my show and we were doing everything. And we were clocking it and we knew how many tons of carbon we were reducing and all that stuff. And one of our last scenes happened in the underworld, and it was decided that it would be a world of ash.
Okay.
And I don't know what I was thinking, or somehow I missed it. I walked onto that set and everybody's masked up. Nobody can breathe. There's particulate in the air. Everyone's going, the actors are like, their eyes are stinging. They're going to I've got to call in doctors. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I let this go? How did I miss? Here we are improving air quality outside, reducing generator use, doing everything, eating organic food, and suddenly
all the boxes checked.
150 people who can't breathe. And I'm like, okay, we're stopping, clean this up.
Yeah.
Get this out of here. Let's figure out how to do this. And luckily the crew and the director and everybody were so great about it, but it was just, I don't know how I missed it. Yeah. I don't know how I don't know how I just missed that the world of ash would be floating particulate. I don't know. So, I think that there's the kind of the reason I told you this is that it literally is about doing, everything counts.
Yeah.
Everything counts. It doesn't matter if it didn't work. You actually learn more from what didn't work. Mm. Yeah. You can walk around all day and tell all your drivers to turn off their cars because they're idling, but until you ask them why they're idling, why? Well, I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get you a place to go outside of your car all day. Mm-hmm. Let's get you something almost comfortable. Yeah. You can't, you're hot. Oh, can we park you in the shade?
Right.
Whatever it is, people are just doing things on automatic. Yeah. And sometimes we can be working on the logical solution.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, why are you running the generator 24/7? It's like, oh, the makeup could freeze. Not in July.
Right.
Turn it off.
I love that. I love that. It's asking that simple question. And from that, once again, so many different possibilities are derived from that, of solutions. This. These it isn't rocket science, as I guess what I'm trying to get at, and probably what you're getting at here too. Is just having some sort of thoughtful approach to things. And
well, it's allowing yourself to do both.
Yeah.
I did a road trip and I have an electric car and I was worried about the road trip, so I switched cars with my daughter and I drove a gas car. And I didn't beat myself up about driving a gas car for 3 weeks, but the next time I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll try and do it in the electric car. So you can do it's not all or nothing.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if if I have dental surgery, I need a straw. That doesn't mean I'm going to use one the other 360 days of the
Mm-hmm.
year,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever you need. Like, we're not telling people not to use what they need. We're
Yeah.
asking them to consider whether they need it.
Yeah.
And I think
Mm.
especially in Canada and North America, our consumption rates are so high. Like,
Yeah.
we consume more than anywhere else in the world per capita, and we put out more garbage than anyone else in the world per capita. And
Mm.
it's like, honestly, if you don't need it, don't use it. You're
Right.
going to save money.
Yeah.
The show will save money. You're going to feel better. Like, just because you have it, don't turn it on.
Yeah, it's getting off that autopilot, kind of returning to that point,
Yeah.
right? Of just getting off that and thinking, being a little bit more thoughtful, I suppose. And one, I suppose, as a leader, and you kind of referenced that already, but then also two, I think for just the individuals themselves and whatever role that they're fulfilling, whatever job they're doing, it's just having a little more thought towards what they can do, and it does certainly add up. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I do have one last segment here lined up here, Clara, and it's a crystal ball segment. And as the name sort of implies, we're looking to the future, trends, predictions, so on and so forth. And I'd be curious within the context of this talk, is there anything maybe statistics wise that stands out to you, that it's something that I guess on both sides here, where one, there's a statistic maybe that's quite alarming in reference to your industry, but then also two, maybe there's one that offers hope for the way things are going. Maybe it's progress. I don't need to put you on the spot here, but do you have anything for us in terms of that?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of measuring, which is a problem.
Okay.
And because every production is different, it's a problem. So you can't really, there's only one report that came out in 2021 through the Sustainable Production Alliance in the US,
Okay.
and they took a cross section of all the studios. When you're talking about collaboration, every studio submitted data of the stuff that was shooting in North America, and then they put it into groups, whether it was an hour of dramatic series or a tentpole production or a small production film. And the one that kills me the most, because this is what I did when I was producing, was I did network television, is that an average network television hour emits 77 tons of carbon to produce.
Whew. Wow. 77
So
tons.
when you're streaming and you're looking through all the options of what episode you like, it's an insane amount, right? And I think that I can't even extrapolate that to how many hours of television are on available
Yeah,
or
right.
being produced all the time. Like, it's crazy. Like, I think we figure in, I was working with Suncor to try and figure out just what their market share is and and this is completely a non qualified number, but it's something like 50 million liters of fuel to run the film industry in Canada. So we're not a small industry,
No.
and we're completely overlooked
Yeah.
because we're small when we're making it. Like, we're making one show,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But the industry as a whole
That's
has a giant
massive.
footprint. So I think that if we can figure this out, we're going to be able to quickly scale up the technology that's required for everybody else.
Mm.
And using our influence, I think that's our magic superpower, is we have this influence. Like, we're
Yeah.
everywhere in the world.
Yeah. 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 I really like that
So
point. Hey, fashion, automotive, whatever it is, right? No, I really like that.
whatever
I
it
think
is.
that's, yeah.
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 So hopefully that'll be really good. And then I guess the inspiring one was with one piece of legislation, we're saving hundreds of tons of carbon a year in Vancouver because of that.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
think that's super inspiring.
Sure is.
And, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's a start, you
Well,
know.
That's what we need, quite frankly. So we just need several dropped in that bucket, right? But it's got to start from somewhere. And the great thing is that, once you get a few of those under your belt, things start to build. And it seems to me, again, referencing that talk that I had with another sustainability consultant, Zena Harris, and now with you, working towards the end of this conversation, what comes across to me is like a sense of optimism moving forward. There's a lot of things going on within that industry, I think. And the point that you raised as well of just the influence and clout that industry has, and the amount of points at which it can influence a number of other industries, gives me hope, at least for me. And I'm sure listeners are going to be coming away from this as well with that same sort of shared sense of optimism towards the future and the way they're moving.
Well,
I've already said this once, there's enough doom and gloom out there, and we can't hide that away. We have to acknowledge it, obviously. But at the same time, I think it is worth pointing out some of the things that are taking shape because, quite frankly, we can derive even further inspiration or take these ideas and twist them around and like, okay, well, I could maybe do this, this, and this myself. So yeah, sorry.
well, I think what's exciting about what's great about this particular industry is we don't give up. Right? Like we never give up. Like if your first answer is no, we can't do that, you're not going to get a job again. Like that's not what we're wired to do.
Yeah.
So if we can, so the reason you hear this optimism isn't because we're done, it's great, it's all, everybody's doing it, it's perfect, we're done. No, it's not that at all. We're very much at the beginning of this journey. But every time we run into someone who heard of it or wants to do it and stuff, we're like, yes, we got one more, because we know that there aren't, like, it's a small enough industry that the decision makers, I don't know, a few thousand, 10,000. I don't know how, maybe even if it's 100,000.
Yeah, it's still quite.
It's nothing.
Yeah,
right. Like so it's attainable, as opposed to trying to reach, the Paris Accord. You know what I mean? Like this is not. This is a small enough industry, and especially if you can do it regionally. We have about 100. We max out, I think, in Vancouver at about 100, 120 productions at a time.
Okay.
So, I literally have talked to like 40.
Yeah.
At any given moment. Yeah. So if those 40 can try, like if it's a small.
It doesn't take much, does it? Right. I mean, wow. That's a really interesting.
It's a typical industry, I guess, is what I'm talking about. This is typical. So the optimism you're hearing is certainly not always happening. Like there was definitely moments when I'm like, even this morning I was talking with my coworkers and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a cynical, horrible person today on the podcast, unless I find some inspiration to talk about what's happening. Cause but that's okay. Cause that's part of the film industry too. Like we're frustrated a lot and we're brought up, but what we don't do is we don't say no. Like as soon as that wall comes up, we go, okay, can we get above it? Can we go around it? Can we go under it? Can we go through it? Can we blow it up? Like, what are we going to do? We don't, the conversation
doesn't
never
stop. Yeah. Yeah.
We even go back and do reshoots after we've shot everything. Right. And then we re-edit. And it's it never stops.
Yeah.
Or how can we do it better? Or wait, we're going to redo Batman again. Like how many times are we going to try and keep revisiting? And so it's in nature to keep trying.
It's a really interesting point.
It's easier to be optimistic, I guess, in some place that won't give up.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's a nice kind of point to end this conversation. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed all of this. You've raised so many interesting points. I thought I had a lot of this covered, in terms of getting a pulse on things and coming into this talk with a second, similar sort of topic matter. But you just provided so much more for me to chew on here, Clara. So I really enjoyed it. And I think listeners are going to come away just armed with just so many more insights. So yeah, I can't thank you enough for taking some time to join the program today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, for those interested in learning more about Clara and her work, you can find her at greenproductionguide.com, also dgcgreen.ca. For reference, that information will be included in the show notes. And also if you'd like today's show, please be sure to share. I mean, that stuff goes a long ways. It really does help. You can also rate, review, and subscribe wherever you access your podcasts. And also, if you have some time, head on over to YouTube. Within the last year, we did launch a channel over there where you can catch full video conversations, much like the one we had today with Clara. And the cool thing there, too, is that we'll have some image overlays off the top, images associated with the actual talk itself. And then also, too, please be sure to tune into the next episode of Life as a, where we'll continue to explore and unearth the details of professions and the people behind them. I'm your host, Christopher Schoenwald. Until next time, stay curious about life and living.